Bonjour and welcome back to my channel, Claude here. So today I'm going to be reviewing The Tarot of Light and Shadow by John Matthews and Andrea Aste. Now I've had this deck, or couple of decks should I say, because it's a double pack, for quite a while, and I've been working with it a lot. And if you've ever seen any of my reviews, you'll know that I don't do first impressions because I don't think it's informative. You know, I want to know what I'm talking about when I review the decks. That's why I always wait before I do reviews. Now, I am a big fan of John Matthews and of his partner, Kathleen Matthews. I have reviewed her incredible book called Untold Tarot on my channel, where she teaches you how to read any kind of pip deck, or, you know, the old styles, such as the Tarot de Marseille or the Italian Tarot. And it's an amazing book, and oh God, she's a mine of information. So is John. You know, he's created loads of different decks. Amazing people. And as for Andrea Aste, he's an incredible artist. I love his art style. And in August last year, 2022, he actually had a multimedia project with a tarot deck and a big book, and there was a film and music with it, and that was a project on Kickstarter that I backed, and I received the deck with everything that comes with it about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago now, and I will post a review on it, so you can see how the artwork is kind of similar, but it builds on that basically. It's super interesting. And the thing is, there was an option for the backers whereby you could create a spread for the deck that you were supporting. And I took this option, and so my spread is actually published in the guidebook, which I'm very excited about. So I will show you that obviously in the next reviews, but yeah, that was a heads up, so keep your eyes peeled. Now, if you're not interested in the box, the guidebook and everything else, then by all means jump to the timestamp below to go to the cards if you just want to see the cards. I personally think that the guidebook is very, very good here, and it explains to you how to use the deck, so that's why I'm going to spend some time on it. But hey, you do you. But if you've got the time, then please sit back and relax. So this is a very sturdy box. This is the front, and the sides. It looks really nice on the shelf actually. It's published by Watkins. And there's the back, and it says, the most subtle and insightful tarot ever created. For the first time ever, two decks have been designed to work together in a new multi-layered approach to tarot. The shadow deck, your inner world, your instinct and what is unknown. The light deck, the outer world, the rational and what is known. This groundbreaking double deck from best-selling tarot creator John Matthews and renowned Italian artist Andrea Aste allows you to look both within and without, explore both sides of every question and answer, and find the best way forward in the blending of both answers. Now, it is available for $29.99 in the UK, $44.95 in the US, and for our Canadian friends, $46.95. You can find it for less on Amazon. So the box, very sturdy, with the slits on the side, so you can push it open. Now, I don't keep my tarot decks in there because I use these two actually so much that they have their own leather pouch, but obviously for the sake of this review I've put it back. Box is just, you know, standard. There's your guidebook, and there's how the two decks are organized, and you see, because it's slightly taller than the insert, it does that, which is, you know, annoying. But anyway, as I said, mine don't live in the box, so it doesn't bother me. So let's start with the guidebook. This is what the front looks like, which is exactly the same as the box. There's your spine, and there's the back, where there's, you know, more things to read. I'm not going to read it all because otherwise this is going to be a very, very long review. But it gives you ideas of what John Matthews and Andrea Aste have done, you know, professionally. So for instance, for John Matthews, it mentions the Arthurian Tarot, which he co-created with Kathleen Matthews, his partner. The Wildwood Tarot with Mark Ryan, you may have heard, it's a very popular deck. And obviously talks about Andrea Aste, and he's a multimedia artist, a writer, an animator and a filmmaker, and he's put all of this in his Kickstarter project that I backed, by the way. Amazing, amazing creator. So it is colored, as in you've got the two decks are in beige tones and in teal navy blue tones, so you will see that. It's very good quality guidebook, very well organized. So when you open it, it looks like this. So you've got your table of contents here. So you got an introduction that's about 5 pages long, then working with the double tarot. The book of cards is the actual meanings of the cards. And then you've got new spreads and sample readings. Now these are very well explained. The spreads are actually very interesting, and I have tried them out and worked with all of them, particularly the mirror spread, which I will explain to you in a minute. But the sample readings that they gave really help you understand how to maximize the actual spread and gain information from them. And then there's a section on directional reading, which I love because I use this technique a lot in my own readings, and then obviously some resources and further reading suggested for you. So in the introduction, basically it talks to you about the concept of the deck. And the concept of it is that they've come up with 2 different decks, one light and one shadow. And all of this is because they believe that there are things that, but basically things look different under the sun than they do under the moon, okay? I mean, I use this myself when I explain cards in my readings. And so for this reason, they've decided to do 2 decks so that you could see both angles of an answer or of a question. And they really reiterate a lot in the book that it's very important you do not associate light with good or positive and dark with the shadow with dark, negative, and so on, because they compare it to the yin and the yang. You know, it's something that's intermingled and that complements us. So they want you to really look at this as 2 complementary decks. Ideally, they want you to work with both decks combined, but they do give you other methods on how to use them not combined. I've done both. I use my 2 decks separately and combined, you know, depending on the reading I want to do, and I think it gives you so much flexibility. I think it's absolutely amazing. They also mention in the introduction that you see that the artwork mirrors itself. So they're a mirror, but that there's also slight elements that change between the light and the shadow deck, and this gives you extra information, extra meaning, extra symbolism, which obviously is very interesting. And if you are like me and you can go down the rabbit hole and just write down all of the differences of each card between the 2 decks, which I did. I'm ashamed of saying I've spent an incredible amount of time looking at the differences between the 2 cards to make sure I could extract all the meanings, but that's who I am. I love studying, so you know, you may enjoy that. Who knows? So yeah, so it explains a lot of this and the concept of the yin and the yang, and then you have working with the double tarot, and obviously the concept came from the fact that as well, people often clarify with a different deck, okay? Now, I do it very often, and that's why I bought, for instance, the 2 different editions of the Tarot de Marseille from Vincent Petici, because I want to use a deck to clarify that uses the same symbolism, the same art. I find it sometimes distracting if I clarify with a deck that is not using the same symbolism, or even sometimes the artwork clashes. I don't know if you see what I mean, but I find that distracting. So I like the concept that here I have 2 decks that use the exact same symbolism and artwork. It's not distracting at all. So that was another reason why they said that they decided to go with that. And so they give you ways of working with the double deck. So the first method, which is you choose either the light or the shadow deck, you shuffle, draw your card as you normally would, and then you draw a number of additional cards from the alternate deck, because this is going to supplement and clarify your original reading. Method 2 is shuffle both decks together and make a reading from the whole pack of cards. So we're talking, so there's 78, so that would be 156, and if you use the 2 extra cards, because there's 2 extra cards, then that would be 158 cards, so it's going to be chunky, but they do tell you how to deal with that, by the way, later on. Now they say that this is how it was intended to be used, because the effect of the method is to give a huge range of layered meanings to each question, so it gives you a more nuanced answer. You know, it's very interesting, it can get very deep. And then method 3 is just to use either deck as you would normally with any tarot deck. Then there's a bit about the cosmic mirror or the wild cards. Now this is the extra card, and obviously it's in each deck, and they explain to you how to use them. I will go through that when I show you the cards. And then there's a bit about the pips and the courtiers. So it talks to you about the fact that they've decided to go with a pip style deck rather than having the minors illustrated in the Rider-Waite tradition. That doesn't mean that there is no symbolism in the pips, because the way they've organized the artwork, you do get symbolism anyway. And they say it that in the meanings, you know, when you go to the section of the meanings, they've tried to stay close to the Tarot de Marseille from the 17th century's meanings, but they fleshed out the interpretations by adding some Rider-Waite Smith's meanings as well. So it's a very interesting, actually, what the meanings are. For some of them you may be surprised when you look at it, because it's neither TDM, neither RWS, it's kind of in between. But yeah, it's really it's really well done. Then they give you ideas on how to shuffle. So when you have two big decks like that, if you want to have it together, you can shuffle each deck separately. And then you can deal the cards in let's say 4 piles, and by the end of it, put your 4 piles together and you have a big deck. Or you can just shuffle them on a table. Obviously, you know, choose what works for you. And then you've got the mirror spread here. Now this is the a spread that's very important to this deck, because the other spreads are put at the back. They wanted it to stand out, and I mean, I'm going to just read you the little bit about the mirror spread quickly. So it says that in this double tarot, we deal directly with the choices we make, and while there are infinite permutations to any reading, here we show 2 paths, the path of light and the path of shadow. So this is going to be a 6-card spread, and you choose whether you start with the light or with the dark. And it's like a pendulum read. So in other words, you ask a question and then you get an answer with your second card. But with this answer stems another question. And so that puts you to question 3, there's your answer. And then this asks another question. Now cards 5 and 6 need to be read together to give you the combined final outcome, if you will, like a summary of the reading. It's very interesting. I have used this this spread, and it's been very informative. It's worked for me. Now obviously, you know, it completely depends on your style of reading, but I think it's very, very clever way of reading. I was very impressed by it. And obviously you choose what deck you start with, whether you want to start with the light one or whether you want to start with the dark one. Now if you have no idea at all about what the answer is to your question, they recommend you start with the shadow one, so that you allow light to answer you. But if it's about manifesting something, then they recommend that you start with the light, because the shadow will give you the answers that resides within yourself in order to make it happen. And obviously you can extend that reading by adding another 6 cards, so doing it again, but this time going backwards. So if you laid your cards from left to right, the next 6 cards you're going to lay them from right to left. Again, you need to read all of this, because I'm trying to summarize it and I feel like I'm not doing it justice. So then we've got the book of the cards. That's the meaning of the cards, which I will go and explain to you in a minute, but I just want to show you the other spreads. So you have the Divine Full spread, which is designed to be used with one deck, and it's a 6-card spread, pretty much used for making decisions, weighing up your options. And then you've got a sample reading. Then you have, I think it's the Eternal Truth, yeah, the Eternal Truth spread, which is used using a combined deck. Now this is 7 cards, and this is for things like, it says, the eternal truth is one that's above everyday knowledge, one that does not change and that rings true for whatever the issue is under consideration. That's what you would use it for. And again, you have an explanation, you know, sample reading. And then you have the cosmic spread. Now that is another 7-card spread. This is designed to be used with a combined deck. And they have used the cosmic mirror cards, which are the extra cards in this deck, but I will, in this spread, sorry, so I will explain that to you when we go through the cards. And then there's a section on directional reading, which I mentioned when I was going through the table of contents. Now, I love directional reading. This is a technique I use a lot, and I'd forgotten about it until I read the Untaught Tarot book from Kathleen Matthews a few years ago, and she really goes in depth about this. And basically it stems from looking at where the cards are looking at to gain more information, really boiling it down to, you know, a nutshell, because there's more to it than that. But the ancient decks, if you look at the majors and the court cards, they look either right or left, whereas the more recent deck, they have a tendency to face you, which is like they're reflecting your own consciousness. It's like a mirror to your soul. It's a different thing. And then it explains how you can use where they look or what they're pointing out in order to gain more meanings, which is super interesting. But obviously, you know, it depends on how you like to read. And then you have a few sample readings to show you how to use this kind of directional method. And then after that, you've got the resources and the further readings if you want to, you know, develop your knowledge more. So then we move on to the meanings of the cards, because I jumped it because I wanted to show you all the spreads together. So it's called the Book of Cards, I think. So you've got the major arcana, obviously all of them listed. You will see that it follows the Tarot de Marseille tradition, because as a number 8 card you have justice, not strength, and obviously that means that strength is number 11. Okay, so that follows this order. And you get a double page for each of them. So you get a description, a little narrative paragraph about what's going on in the card, and then you get the meaning for the light reading and the meaning for the shadow reading, which I find it very interesting because it prompts you to question what you see. So you've got all of that for every single major. And then we move on to the minor. So the minor arcana, they have kept mostly the suits, except the coins are serpents. So you can see you got swords, cups, serpents and wand. The elements are the same, so obviously serpents will be earth. And then they have a design feature. So the artwork features, for instance, more squares for the sword suit. It's triangles for the cups, circles for the serpents, and rectangles for the wands. It does say here, and I will read it to you, so you get, you know, a better idea of me trying to paraphrase. They've chosen to emphasize the families of each suit through the use of geometric shapes, stylized clothing, or in the case of the knights, it's the basic styling of their mounts. So for instance, cups have an underlying triangular shape, while swords are square, wands are rectangular, and the serpents are circular. It makes sense when you look at the cards. There is an explanation of the aces, because they say that each ace obviously has its own meaning, but in the Tarot of Light and Shadow, the 8 aces create a sequence with its own meanings and cultural references, which help to unify the decks as well as demonstrating the variations present in each. So you begin with the Ace of Swords here in the light and in the shadow, and this is referring the Excalibur myth. And then here the cups, this is the Holy Grail. The serpents, because you've got 2, is a reference to the Norse mythology of Ragnarok. And then the wands is a reference to coming full circle back to the primordial soup, which I thought was very interesting to read. And then you get, for each of the suits, you get a paragraph. So we start with the suit of swords and they explain what the suit of swords represents. And then it goes on. And then by that point in time, you get 1 page for each minor. Okay, so a short paragraph, and then again, same format, light reading, shadow reading. Very interesting to read. it explains to you as well, so obviously, you know, cups, same thing. It explains to you as well why they have changed the coins to the serpent. That's why it's longer, you know, trying to explain it. And basically, you know, this is a representation of the Ouroboros, the symbol of eternity and unending renewal. And the images represent the keys to wholeness and success, the wisdom of life, the blessing of house and home. It goes in depth as to why this was made as a decision. I personally think it's great. It's still circle, so you can clearly identify this as a coin, and it goes through all of the meanings. Now, and then you've got the Cosmic Mirror cards. I'm gonna keep that there and show you the decks so I can read to you at the same time so that it makes sense. So let's have a look at the cards now. I can't believe I've already been speaking for this long. I'm so sorry. It's such an interesting concept. I can't be faster than that. So we have the two decks. Now, this is a standard tarot deck. Okay, this is my 1JJ Swift by Vincent Petici, to give you an idea of the sizes. Okay, this is how it looks. Now, you may not be able to see the thickness of the other deck, but look at the difference in thickness. Can you see this? Now, this is an amazing deck, just so we're clear. You know, this is a linen cardstock. Love it. Beautiful. But this is thicker, as you can tell. This is not linen anyway, but this is thicker. So these are two big chunky deck. The other thing I want to show you is the size, because these cards, so that's your standard, these cards are slightly smaller. So if you've got smaller hands, that's interesting for you. Let me show you right up close. You can see at the top, you gain probably, I would say, 3 or 4 millimeters, and same on the side. So obviously for you that may matter. I have average size hands, so that's a standard tarot, that's where it sits, and this one is like that. So that's, you know, to give you, I'm trying to give you the most accurate idea of what it's like to work with. They are glossy cards, okay, you can see I have no problem with gloss, so that's not a problem for me. The backs, they're fully reversal. You won't tell if you're using reversals. I don't, but you won't tell, so that's kind of cool. And this is very good quality. Your cardstock bounces back immediately. So this is the light deck, and this is the darker, or the shadow deck. I shouldn't say dark because it's got maybe a negative connotation, which it shouldn't have. So let me try and zoom in. I hope you can see it, because you really need to see them up close. Okay. So you can see that the artwork is mirrored, but there are differences, as I mentioned before. So, for instance, the birds have turned into bats here. Obviously the sun is the moon. The flower looks different from there. They have teeth. The dog here looks really sweet and nice. That dog has teeth. So that's what they talk about when they say that they have, you know, added bits to it. Now there's your magician. And again, you can see the mirror, but you can see things are not exactly the same. As I mentioned, I sat down with my tarot journal and I wrote down all of the differences between each card. That's who I am. Please don't judge. And I can't speak English apparently today. The High Priestess, evidently here with a book and here with an animal. You can see the differences. I'm not gonna tell you for every one of them, but the Empress, the hair is completely different. The Emperor, same thing, this is different. You've got a severed head here. Now, artwork wise, I love this style, okay? I think it's stunning. I mean, I've mentioned before, I love anything Italian, and not just their food, although it's a big part of it, I'm not gonna lie. But I actually reviewed the, what was it called? The Lanzarote Tarot or something like that. I put it in the description box below. The artwork was stunning. I didn't get on with the deck, but that's a personal thing, personal preference. But the actual artwork was stunning, so if you want to check that out. And Andrea Aste has a very, very, very specific artwork. That's why I was so excited that I got to back his next deck, which is the Book of Shadows, the Alchemist's Story. The Hierophant. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. The Lovers. The Chariot. The Justice card, again different hair. You can see the swords down, up. I mean, yeah, many things are different there. The Hermit, love this Hermit card. The Wheel. Strength. The Hangman. Death, absolutely love Death, by the way. I think he's done a great job at portraying it. Temperance. The Devil. The Tower. You see there, that big thunder lightning thing, that's not there. The Stars. The Moon. The Sun. Judgment. I must say I'm very fond of this these two cards. I really like the representation of it. The World. Now you can see here that the world is being carried on the back of an animal, and you will see hints of that in the next deck I'm reviewing, the Book of Shadows, the Alchemist's Story, because it's explained that, you know, this kind of universe where actually each world is being carried on, each planet is being carried on the back of an animal. You don't get that in this guidebook. All of it makes sense when you have the other deck. So then we move on to the sword suit, so you can clearly see the difference, you know, in the direction, for instance. The Two of Swords. So Pipish, obviously, Pip deck, I did explain why they did it. I'm a Pip girl, I love it. I really, really like Pip decks. Now, the next one I'm going to review, you know, from John Matthews and Andrea Aste, or should I say Andrea and John Matthews, because actually it's Andrea's project and John is just collaborating. This is a Rider-Waite-Smith tradition one, so that's even more interesting, because that means that now I've got 3 decks I can use together in readings. One that has the Rider-Waite-Smith with the illustration of the miners, and those 2 that use the pips. So I'm super excited. I've been playing with those 3 decks like nobody's business. 5 of Swords, 6 of Swords, 7 of Swords, 8 of Swords, 9 of Swords, and the 10 of Swords. Then we have the Page, the Knights, the Queens. I really like this. The way she's holding the sword, I think is very interesting. And the King. So then we move on to the Cups. Two of Cups. 3 of Cups. 4 of Cups. Notice how they are different, as in their shape and art. 5 of Cups, 6 of Cups, 7 of Cups, 8 of Cups, and 9. And I like that it's broken in places. And the 10, where the liquid is spilled there, whereas it's not over there. So then we move on to the court cards. So we have the Page, the Knight, the queens, and the king. So then this is the serpent. So the serpent is the coin suit. And you can see the shape. And I like how this, you know, I like the reference of the Ouroboros and the infinity, basically. I think that's really nifty. So there's your 2 of coins or serpent. 3. And you see, this is interesting because you can see here there's the flesh, but on that it's just the bones. The 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So then your court cards, we have the page, the knight, the queen. Now, okay, I'm a big child, right? Doesn't she look like the baddie in The Little Mermaid? Okay, if you've not seen The Little Mermaid, please just don't judge me. I'm a big child and I love my my Disney films, and she reminds me of the nasty woman who's mean to Ariel. Anyway, a little insight into my psyche here. And then the king. I think he looks epic, by the way. So then we have the wands finally. So there's your ace, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I love how, you know, if you really get into it and you can see not only are the wands different, but they're also the directions, how they put together. Yeah. 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then finally the court card. So we have the Page of Wands. Okay, just spread the cards everywhere, Claude. That's alright. The Knight of Wands. The Queen of Wands. Love the horns there. I think that's really cool. I'm sorry, this is apparently too difficult for me to do. And the King of Wands, again with the horns over there. And then we move on to the extra cards, okay? The Cosmic Mirror. Now I want to talk to you briefly about this. I'm going to grab the booklet and talk to you about it. So basically their purpose is to act as a marker or a guide which can help you choose a specific card from either deck. So each one depicts a mirror, and basically you can either put the light one into the dark deck or keep it within the same deck. That doesn't matter. If you're using the decks independently of each other, then when the card comes up, let's just say you're using just your light tarot and this card comes up, that is an indication that you need to get your next card from the darker pack. If you're using your dark pack and the card comes out, this is saying you need to use your light pack for the next card, which I think is really, really interesting. I've used that a lot actually. I think this is really, really cool. But you can also use them as a significator for yourself or for the issue that you're trying to focus on. And the other thing that is suggested to do, if my memory is right, is you shuffle your deck, you put the mirror card in it. So I'm going to use a different color so I can see it more easily. So let's say I put it in there. So then I can look at the back and at the front, and that can give me an idea of what the significator can be. So you can use a pip if you want for a significator, because pips can represent issues, groups that have an influence on you or whatever, or you could use the one behind. You could also get some really interesting insight when you want something quick by looking at the 2 cards that surround the cosmic mirror and then reading them together as an interpretation, basically to get a message, which I have done a lot as well. It works really nicely. So I really like those. Very often, I've got to be honest, when people give me an extra card, I don't use it. With this deck, this is always within the deck, whether I'm combining or not combining, because I really find that super, super handy to use for some reason. It just really works well for me. The other thing I wanted to tell you is the back of the card. Okay, it's grey, and I was wondering why it's grey. Now, firstly, because if you put the same colours, then you can't use them together. You know which one's light, which one's dark. So I thought, duh, Claude. But it's grey because it's basically when you mix these two colours, you get grey. So I thought that was really, really well thought out. You know, this is a really, really clever concept. And on that, it says that basically this is the city of knowledge called Sapienta, and the reason why I'm mentioning it is because in the Book of Shadows, the alchemist story, there is a huge part about this city that Andrea has created, basically. And so I'm going to read to you what the back of the cards shows so that you get an idea. So the Mistress of Tarot presides over the mysterious city of Sapienta, where all knowledge is kept and which lies between the realms of light and shadow. Here tarot cards come alive and archetypes dance in the street. She holds in her hands the symbol of the four suits, and the mingled shades of both realms are reflected in the grey-toned palette. From the twin domes of the mirrored city, a great eye looks out. It sees all, for this is the place of ultimate mystery where help, advice and guidance are forever present. And you can see she's holding, you know, the snakes, the swords, the wands, and the cup somewhere. So you can do many more things with the cosmic mirror. It's explained in the spreads as well. I just, you know, I'm aware this has been already very long, so and also, you know, I don't want to ruin it for you. I want you to discover it and fall in love with it just as much as I have. So, you know, as I said to you, my final thoughts, I think you've gathered how much I love it. I've used it to death. It's awesome when it comes to messages. It gives you really, really nicely layered answers. You know, it helps you decide when you want to look at the light or the dark meaning of a card as well, because sometimes, you know, we do it intuitively, but it's very nice when it's done like that for you. I have not found it difficult to use the two decks together. The other thing I would say to you is, if you find it too difficult, you can also just spread them on a table, you know. So it really is up to you. And as I said, you do not have to combine the deck anyway. You can get amazing readings by using one and then clarifying with the other. So this is a deck I highly recommend. No questions asked about that. So let me know in the comment box below what your thoughts are. Do you have it? If so, do you get on with it? Do you love it as much as I do? Or are you planning on buying it because I made you fall in love with it? And please stay tuned for my next review, where I will be reviewing this amazing Kickstarter project, as I said, from Andrea Aste, collab with John Matthews. There's also Sasha Graham and Rana George. They've written into the guidebook, and as I said, I got to create a spread for that tarot deck, so I'm super excited. I can't wait to share this with you. So, in the meantime, wherever you are in this world and whenever you're watching this, I wish you a truly magical day. Take care, and I'll see you again very soon. Until next time, au revoir.